So today we've got Fortinet, and we're going to talk about securing your AWS environment. My name's Nick Matthews, and I'm a solutions architect here at Amazon Web Services. I focus on our partners that do network security. So we have some information today about how Fortinet works in with AWS, and a little bit about the security ecosystem on AWS. So high level, if security is not top of mind for you, it really should be. Compared to all the security breaches we've seen over the last year or two, it's a really, really serious business, and the value of your data and the cost of breaches is going up. Top of mind for security professionals, we all know that security is very, very important for whether you're on-premise or on the cloud. But since cloud is a major security concern for our customers, we do everything we can at AWS to make sure that the environment is secure, and then we have partners like Fortinet that are able to extend the security on AWS as well. One of the interesting things that happened last year at reInvent is the CIO of Capital One, Capital One, came on and said that he and his team are able to operate more securely on AWS than they are in their on-premises environment. So as much as I talk to a lot of customers and partners about security in the cloud, people are starting to discover that AWS can be a more secure environment than they can have on premises. And how does that happen? One is all the automation that happens. Whenever you involve automation, you know that things happen right. They happen how you're expecting the first time. Humans tend to be the cause of most serious errors, and automation is a great way to prevent those things. So everything in AWS is capable of being automated. Everything's logged. You can use tools like CloudTrail or CloudFormations to infrastructure deployment. You can do more sophisticated analysis with the analysis tools on AWS, or even using event-driven tools like Lambda. You're also able to simplify resource access. There are no hidden assets in an AWS account. There's no old server sitting underneath a rack that no one knows who owns it. Everything's identifiable, everything is auditable, and we're able to create a kind of a very easy to access resource for all of your computing requirements. As well, it's easier to encrypt on AWS because we've got things like server-side encryption that is a single checkbox for your storage. We make it easier to automate that encryption so that the encryption requirements from an operational standpoint are easier. And AWS uses strong defaults for things like encryption. The shared security model is very, very important to understand, and this is part of where Fortinet comes in. So from a high-level perspective, AWS takes care of the cloud, right? So we manage the network, we manage the storage, we manage the physical data centers, we manage all of the physical security and the infrastructure itself. So basically from the hypervisor level down, that's the security that Amazon takes care of for you. So we make sure that the hypervisor is secure. We do the patching underneath the hood. We make sure that from a security perspective that it's all available, right? So we manage our regions and our availability zones, our edge locations for things like our content delivery network. And so, you, the customer, you're responsible for the things you put in the cloud, right? So the applications and the workloads and the data that you put on our infrastructure is the customer's responsibility. Effectively, if you put it there, it's kind of your responsibility to secure it. We help you secure what you put it on, but the customer is responsible for making sure that you adhere to any type of compliance requirements around PCI, because we're not going to look at your data and make sure you're not exposing cardholder data, for instance. And so that's where there's a lot of requirements for customers to look at third-party solutions to help meet compliance and security requirements of their data and their infrastructure that's on the cloud. From a high level, we manage and monitor the infrastructure, the network access, DDoS attacks, the high-level security requirements from a management perspective, AWS takes care of. So, our customers using tools like AWS CloudTrail to monitor and manage all API calls into AWS to look for suspicious activity or to do instant response. We've also got tools now in the security side of things for like AWS Inspector. So AWS Inspector is a service that allows you to put an agent on your operating system that will go check for common CVE vulnerabilities, for instance. So at a single point in time, you could make an API call to confirm that there's no CVEs in your application at that point in time. And so, like the rest of our infrastructure, we can automate that and we can use API calls. It's highly available. So inside of AWS, we've got 12 regions, maybe even 13 now with India coming online. And there's 33 availability zones. So a region is a collection of availability zones. An availability zone is roughly a data center, but often our availability zones contain more than one data center. So you can go global in minutes across AWS. There's a wide range of places where you can put your data, but for compliance and regulatory concerns, your data will never leave the region where you place it unless you explicitly tell it to. For example of that is S3. If you decide to replicate your S3 to multiple regions, you can choose to do that, but if you choose, for instance, to put all of your data in Frankfurt, Germany, all of your traffic will stay in Frankfurt, Germany. As well, this availability concern extends to distributed denial of service attacks or DDoS attacks. So because we operate such a large-scale infrastructure, we're able to absorb DDoS attacks very effectively. And on top of just the scale of services we have, there's also tools we have like auto-scaling, which will push your infrastructure capabilities up or down as load comes in. And Route 53 is helpful as a lot of the DDoS attacks come in through DNS. And so our Route 53 service is highly capable of absorbing those types of DNS attacks and those DDoS attacks. So our services are highly integrated for customers that want to run more of a hybrid IT, and if they want to do things like encryption into their Microsoft Active Directory, we have services that can either integrate or we can host that in EC2. If you want to, on the hybrid side as well, if you want to extend your network into AWS securely, maybe you don't want to go and use the internet for some of your workloads, we're able to extend those connections in through Direct Connect. So you can use your existing MPLS or your existing network connection and go directly into your Amazon VPC or virtual private cloud, so our networking. And you can also use your own encryption keys. Some customers feel more comfortable if they own and operate the encryption keys for all the encryption that happens. And so we've got partners and solutions that allow you to use those keys. We just in New York announced last week the ability to import your own encryption keys into KMS, or key management system. So it's, a lot of customers ask us how they know these things are true. How do we know that you're secure? How do we know that you encrypt your data at rest? And how do we know these things? And these certifications are the way we show this to customers, right? So whether it's something like ISO 27001, ISO 9001, ITAR and FedRAMP for federal customers. We've got a wide array of certifications and classifications for different industries, regulations, and country and government requirements. These can be acquired from your account team, and we make these available for customers to check to make sure that we do what we say we do. So when it comes to Fortinet, what's the additional value on top of the security kind of ecosystem I've already kind of talked about? It's a layer because our security groups, they're stateful and they allow you to define ports and protocols per host, but they don't do maybe protocol inspection. If you want to do things like maybe a dynamic geo IP block, or if you want to do more kind of threat visibility, or block your host from talking to command and control points. So there's a lot of additional security Fortinet can bring. It also their solution does integrations into AWS. So, for instance, they have an integration into our Elastic Load Balancer, or ELB, that allows you to basically define security policies and NAT policies based upon our load balancers, which are highly dynamic. This, in turn, allows you to do kind of a single pane of glass so that you can manage your on-premise and your cloud security in one pane of glass with the Fortinet Manager. And we're constantly listening to customer feedback, right? So all these things were done based upon AWS customer feedback. Fortinet listens to their customers as well, and so we think we've built a very good solution for customers that need kind of an enhanced level of security on AWS. So from here, Fortinet has their offering through Marketplace, so you can go and search there. They've got their next-gen firewall, or NGFW. So like I said, it builds on security groups. So whether you want to do your favorite three-letter acronym for security, that's IPS, VPN, data loss prevention, web application firewall, WAF, you can do those things in the product they have. So let's take a use case here, a customer use case. So this customer had a VPC that they wanted to secure like they do on-premise. So on-premise, they use the FortiGates, and they've got Fortinet Manager, FortiAnalyzer. So they needed to do IPS north-south between their EC2 instances and the internet. As well, since these were web applications, they wanted to do web application firewall. So in this scenario, what they did is they put a FortiGate VM in each of their availability zones. Those are tied together with high availability, and they were able to deploy their dev test or dev QA and more production traffic using the FortiGates as the north-south boundary for security. And so the FortiGate Manager and the Analyzer are able to take data from both the AWS environment and the on-premise environment to give you kind of a better single pane of glass for security management. Cool. So we've got Dave here from Fortinet, and he's going to talk through some of the more details about the FortiGate product and Fortinet as a whole.
Great. Hey, thanks, Nick. That was a great kickoff. And thanks to everyone for taking the time to join this webcast. I'm Dave Morrissey, and I run the AWS program here at Fortinet. I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes or so introducing Fortinet, discussing network threat protection, and the importance of a strong partnership between your security vendor and AWS. We'll then close with a Q&A session. So I'd like to start by first introducing Fortinet. So Fortinet is a US-based company that's been providing advanced network security solutions for over 15 years. Last year, Fortinet surpassed $1 billion in revenue and continued its trend as the #1 network security vendor with over 2.6 million products shipped to over 280,000 global customers. In fact, Fortinet has 2 times more security products shipped than its closest competitor. But the Fortinet customer base really tells the story. Fortinet has a large and diverse customer base, including Fortune 500 enterprise, small to medium business, government, education, and healthcare. In fact, 50 of the 60 world's largest companies and all 10 of the top global telecoms have chosen Fortinet to protect their networks. So now that we've had a brief introduction to Fortinet, let's look at the threat that's facing us today. So this quote by Robert Mueller is a little bit dated, but I think it really perfectly summarizes how all organizations should be viewing cyber threats. And one of the key reasons that Fortinet has been so successful with such a wide and diverse customer base is because of its ability to detect and protect against this constant, always-on threat landscape. So these are an interesting group of statistics about users, devices, threats, and revenue. But what do they really mean to you? Well, quite simply, they mean that network threats continue to increase exponentially. The combination of the growth of threats with the dramatic increase of the number of devices that can be used to access the network means the job of protecting the network will continue to be more and more difficult, and we all must adapt. Considering the evidence, it's clear some new ideas are needed. but many enterprises today are still relying on the same old strategies. I mean, just look at the news. It seems that almost daily we're reading about another attack, another breach, and another massive loss of data. So what isn't working anymore? There are three key areas that we can point to. The first is being too focused on compliance. Just checking all the boxes on a list isn't enough. How many massive retail breaches have we seen where the company was recently audited and found to be fully PCI compliant? Attackers don't care that you passed your last audit. The second is being too risk-based and reactive. While yes, it is important to protect against the already known threats, it's the new unknowns that are critical to detect. An annual risk assessment actually becomes obsolete the moment it's done in today's threat landscape. And finally, focusing on solutions that differ from premise to cloud opens potential security gaps. A firewall from one vendor, a sandbox from another, a spam solution from a third, none of these tools were ever designed to work together. And this leaves your network with potential vulnerabilities. So given all this, what do organizations do to avoid becoming the next headline? The solution starts with changing the way network security is viewed. Security must be comprehensive and intelligent, with zero trade-offs in capabilities and performance. Legacy security approaches built for physical data centers don't often translate well into the cloud security and do not provide enough clarity on what is important in a hybrid environment. So you need a security partner that is focused and proven in both premise and the cloud to combat today's sophisticated threats. And Fortinet has that critical cloud focus. With support and deployments in every global AWS region, Fortinet AWS customers have the flexibility to base their cloud deployments in the locations that best fit their business objectives. Furthermore, Fortinet specializes in multi-layered security postures to create a fabric between cloud and premise. To help customers achieve this enhanced network security, Fortinet provides a suite of security features that layer onto the AWS Security Group's segmentation and network access control list capabilities. In fact, AWS recommends using third-party security partners like Fortinet to augment their security group capabilities, as Nick mentioned. So let's take a little more detailed look at some of these enhanced security features that Fortinet layers onto the AWS security groups. You can see a number of features and threat research outlined here, but three of the most commonly used features include intrusion prevention, IPS, app control, and web filtering. So let's look at IPS first. FortiGate's intrusion protection system protects your network against hacking and other attempts to exploit vulnerabilities. More than 3,000 signatures are able to detect exploits against various operating systems, host types, protocols, and applications. These exploits can be stopped before they reach your network, and you even have the flexibility to write custom signatures. Second, application control. So although you can block the use of some applications by blocking the ports they use for communications, many apps do not use standard ports to communicate. Application control can detect the network traffic of more than 1,000 applications, improving your control over application communication. And third, web filtering. Web filtering includes a number of features to protect or limit your users' activity on the web. More than 60 million websites and 2 billion web pages are rated by category. You can choose to allow or block each of the 77 categories, restrict access to web pages based on words and phrases, and even create your own list of words and phrases to block. So in summary, Fortinet provides the tools to allow customers to fine-tune their specific security needs to meet their business requirements. So in addition to providing a suite of security tools, Fortinet's FortiGuard Threat Research Division provides real-time global threat analysis for customers in the cloud, on-premise, or a hybrid of both. Threats are constantly evolving, as we've seen. This chart depicts some pretty compelling examples of how Fortinet leverages some 416,000 hours of annual threat research to provide customers real-time, sophisticated network security protection. The vast sampling of threats stored and ability to detect, redirect, and write against never-before-seen zero-day threats helps set Fortinet apart and gives its customers a position of strength to leverage against today's bad actors. So Fortinet approaches the AWS cloud from the customer perspective of needing to protect the data, applications, and workloads it places in the cloud to meet the shared security model that Nick outlined previously. In order to provide maximum network architecture flexibility, Fortinet has certified multiple VM products for deployment in AWS. These VM products include, off to the left you can see, the FortiGate multi-threat next-gen gate firewall, the FortiWeb web application firewall, FortiManager centralized management platform, FortiAnalyzer centralized reporting platform, and the FortiMail secure email gateway platform. Additionally, to provide further flexibility, Fortinet has included these products on the AWS Marketplace and offers both the FortiGate and FortiWeb in both a BYOL, which is where you would launch your privately owned VM, and an on-demand, where you would take advantage of the hourly or annual subscriptions through AWS Marketplace. So the takeaway of this slide is that Fortinet provides one of the most comprehensive AWS security product sets with deployment flexibility to meet varying customer requirements in the cloud. So as you've seen from the prior slides, Fortinet is a technology-driven company with many different products and tools. But it doesn't produce products for technology's sake. It is instead focused on leveraging advanced security technology to solve customer requirements and stopping security breaches before they occur. There are four main areas you can see here that Fortinet focuses in supporting AWS customers. First, by providing a unified security posture across both premise and cloud with a single pane of glass, hybrid networks can be managed as one logical entity. Fortinet's deep experience in premise-based solutions, coupled with its cloud experience, gives it a unique perspective and security consistency. Second, by maintaining a uniform operating system across AWS Cloud-certified VMs and hardware platforms, hybrid customers can leverage a common security posture. Furthermore, partnering with AWS and Fortinet certified partners gives customers additional options for assistance in migration and ongoing cloud operations and maintenance. Third, by simplifying workload migration to AWS with continuous development and integration, which includes boosting VM performance, security elasticity with next-gen firewall autoscaling, high availability automation templates, and providing a range of VM sizes to accommodate varying workloads, helps customers meet their security objectives as they move into AWS. And fourth, and here we go again, Fortinet's threat research team at FortiGuard Labs of over 200 individuals monitoring over 2 million global sensors provides an unparalleled ability to not only detect existing threats, but to protect your network against new or evolving threats. So in summary, customer operational and technical network security needs drive Fortinet's development in AWS, with an eye towards providing sophisticated capabilities, automated templates, and complete architecture solutions. So, in closing, Fortinet has a proven track record of helping customers secure their workloads in AWS by providing a unified security posture across hybrid cloud networks, customer support through cloud-focused tools, development resources, and threat research, and by enabling smooth cloud migration in any AWS global region via automated deployment templates with deep AWS resource integration. Fortinet looks forward to helping you achieve your security objectives as you migrate to AWS, and I'd like to thank you for your time today. Nick, let's open the call up to Q&A now.
Cool deal. So yeah, guys, there's a Q&A panel. So I know there's probably some technical questions and whatnot that we can go through. So just start hitting up the Q&A panel. We'll go through some of the ones we've already received. So looks like one of the questions was, can we run the Fortinet Manager on AWS? The answer to that is yes. So the FortiGate Manager can run on-premise or inside of AWS. There was a question about whether this is supported in a ELB sandwich scenario. So basically, if you wanted to be able to auto-scale the firewalls, That's a good question. So yeah, there's an architecture we've worked with FortiGate that allows you to use basically an auto-scaling group and a firewall. So you put the firewall as an auto-scaling group, you put an ELB in front of the FortiGate itself, and then that auto-scales out as demand increases or decreases. And behind that is the web scale. So the use case for that is if you have a web server farm that you're expecting to be seasonal or dynamic, needs to auto scale out up and down. Sometimes it's just a cost prevention measure, right? You don't know exactly how many web servers you need, so start with a very small amount. If you need the demand, you scale up. One of the historical problems with firewalls is you weren't able to do that. So with that architecture, you can do that, which is pretty neat stuff. There's also a question here about how this would do in a multi-VPC architecture and what it looks like if you want to do east-west firewall security. So in a multi-VPC scenario, what we would typically do is we would do VPN tunnels into the FortiGate from usually the VGW. Sometimes we would use the built-in EC2 VPN, or sorry, the built-in VGW VPN to connect into the FortiGate. And then from there, your kind of spoke VPCs use the VGW, use VPN to get to central VPC where you've got the FortiGates, and then that does security posture, IPS firewall, those kinds of things. Looks like there was another one on where can they get the auto scaling template. Dave, you got that?
Yeah, so you can reach out to Fortinet sales at awssales@fortinet.com to engage with a Fortinet resource. You can also find the FortiGate autoscaling template and documentation on the AWS Marketplace location.
Okay, cool. Here's a question from the panel. It says, customers have to have teams to monitor Fortinet tools, dashboards, and reports, or does Fortinet manage that?
So I'll take that one, Nick. Fortinet works with, as I mentioned earlier, specific MSSP partners that have both AWS and Fortinet competencies. So we would rely on them to provide that type of a service to our customers unless the customer had its own team itself.
Okay, cool. So yeah, there was a question about how do you secure data that's inside the cloud. If you're less worried about north-south, how do you secure east-west traffic inside AWS with the FortiGate? That's a common scenario. We're starting to see more and more of those kinds of questions come up as people start thinking about like microsegmentation and kind of east-west security in general, because people are starting to find out that the north-south approach is good and it definitely cuts down on the noise, but serious security threats, they're probably going to find a way in from the outside, and it's a question of how do you prevent them from doing either kind of network mapping and application vulnerability scanning from east-west because the outside's kind of crunchy and the inside's kind of soft. That's the M&M security model, right? So how do you prevent that with the Fortinet inside of AWS? So what we typically do is we would deploy a Fortinet in a VPC, and then you make sure that the Fortinet has an interface in each one of your subnets, and you can then set the default gateway inside of each one of your hosts and applications to be the IP address of the FortiGate. Typically, we use automation, so if you use something like Puppet and Chef, it's really trivial to do that, or you can use things like CloudFormation, and you can automate that with the bootstrapping stuff with the user data field. So essentially, you get the default gateway to the FortiGate, and then you make sure the routing table doesn't allow it to get to other subnets, and from there, all traffic that goes east-west is going to go through the firewall. So that's typically how we would do security on kind of an east-west scenario inside of AWS. Let's see what else we've got here. Hey, Dave, maybe you can talk a little bit about what the pricing is based off of?
Sure. So the pricing is based on the size of the instance. And again, there's two models. There's the BYOL model, where you would work with a MSSP or a traditional resale partner, and you would purchase that VM as a perpetual license. And again, the pricing is based on the size. Currently supported is VM 01, 02, 04, and 08, which are based on virtual CPUs. The flip side of that is on-demand pricing. On-demand pricing is publicly available on the AWS Marketplace site. Just go to the Marketplace, do a search on Fortinet, and you'll see a number of products that come up. Select a product that you'd like to see on-demand pricing. You'll see that the FortiGate and FortiWeb both have on-demand options. And there's two options once you get into that specific product. There is an hourly and there is an annual. So depending upon how you'd like to set up your network and exactly how you're using the instance, it might make more sense to do a privately owned BYOL VM, or it could make more sense to do an annual subscription. Or again, if you're doing a more of a DevOps network that's going to be up for a short time and then shut down, it might make sense to do an hourly subscription.
Okay, and there was a question on C4 8XL and 8X, or C4XL and 8XL?
Yes, so good question. I'd say keep an eye out. We should be releasing the 4XL, 8XL, and unlimited sizes here in the next, we'll say 4 to 8 weeks. And you can reach out directly to Fortinet or myself to get additional detail on that timing.
Okay, and then it looks like there was also a question about the trial license on Marketplace. So you guys do 15 days free trial on Marketplace. They said, what happens if they need it for longer?
Yeah, another good question. So true, there's a 15-day trial on AWS Marketplace. You can spin up any of the instances that are out there and give them a try for 15 days. After 15 days, it's your option to shut it off or just to continue using it and begin paying for that instance. If you need longer than 15 days, you would want to reach out directly to Fortinet, and we could get you in touch with your local field team. They can arrange a longer trial period with a BYOL VM.
Okay. Do you guys have any kind of references on when a customer should use something like an M3 medium versus a M3 extra large?
Yeah, we do. On the Fortinet.com/AWS site, you'll find a number of reference architectures as well as links into Marketplace and sizing guides. So you can find the sizing guides there to select the appropriately sized VM or on-demand instance in Marketplace. And I also encourage you to check with Fortinet, engage with a local rep or someone remotely just to validate that.
Okay. Cool. There was a question on where they go to find out more about the roadmap.
Good question. So the roadmap is something that we'd have to discuss offline. Feel free to contact me, and we can take that question offline directly with your specific questions if you're looking for a particular product or feature.
Okay, cool. Let's see. It looks like there were some follow-up questions. On some of the east-west security stuff. We've got some reference architectures internally. I don't know if those have been published yet. So keep an eye out on those. We're still working on some of the details and getting that information out there. And also on the east-west traffic, there was a question on how much it affects network performance. So typically, the solutions that are based on EC2 instances, each one has a bandwidth kind of value that we associate with the instance type. So there's a low, medium, high, very high, and those kinds of things. So for instance, on some of the larger instance types, like the C4 8XL that Dave was talking about earlier, those do full 10 gig internally. So then it's more of, okay, how much of the CPU gets used? C4 8XL has probably more CPUs than you'll probably ever use on a firewall. So yeah, I mean, the more traffic you send through a firewall, there's always going to be a bit of a impact. I think the bigger issue is going to be more about what features you have turned on as opposed to how much traffic's going through it. There was a question about the auto scaling. Dave, do you guys do SNS integrations on auto scaling?
I'm going to have to hold on that one, Nick.
Okay.
I don't know if I've got the specific answer to that.
Okay. I know Praveen's on here as well, so maybe he can, if you want to, you can just do that via chat. Let's see here. What else we've got? So there's a question on auto scaling. So if a firewall is added automatically using auto scaling group, is the configuration automatically replicated? So yeah, that's a good question. So for those that may be less familiar with auto scaling, especially with firewalls, because firewalls aren't typically the kind of target applications that auto scaling is built with, there's a couple ways that this really works. A couple components. So at a high level, what you would do is you create an auto scaling group. When you create the auto scaling group, you create a launch configuration. That launch configuration, you choose which AMI you would want to use. So in this case, basically whatever size of the Fortinet firewall you want to use. And then in the configuration that gets booted up, when the firewall boots up, it will actually talk to basically kind of a worker node. That worker node is actually going to go and pull the configuration off of the firewall. And so as new firewalls get booted up, they will actually, in the auto-scaling process, they will talk to the worker node and tell it that hey, there's a new firewall booting up, and then the worker node will go and push the synchronized configuration to each firewall. So you'll have synchronized security policy across your auto-scaling group. Let's see here. There was a question about whether or not the presentation will be available. I assume so.
Yeah, it'll be available, Nick, and I believe we're also being recorded. So this will be posted to the Fortinet AWS microsite, and it'll also be posted to the AWS YouTube location.
Okay. And do you guys have a website or a site that people can go and take a look at maybe some more stuff around this solution for some folks that want to go a little bit deeper than just the webinar?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'd encourage you to go to fortinet.com/AWS, and you'll see a large list of technical documentation and reference architectures, white papers that you can go through. And there's also contact information there. Should you have any specific questions, we'd be happy to set up a phone call or a webcast with you.
Okay. Cool. Let's see here. Looks like, okay, there's a question about east-west traffic, about network performance. Okay, we answered that one. All right. So, let's see here. There was a question about FedRAMP High PATO. To be honest, I'm not sure what our status is on that. I know we just recently got another one of the latest FedRAMP levels. I don't deal an incredible amount with the federal space, so I can't speak with any authority there. If you're familiar with who your AWS account team is, I would contact them because they will be able to get you more details around, roadmap, especially around, certifications and accreditations. AWS typically only talks about the ones that we have, as it's probably fairly hazardous to take a guess about those kinds of things, since it's so much of our customers' kind of business and criticality rests upon that. So I'm not familiar with that. Let's see here. I think, okay, so here we go. There's a couple more questions coming in. So there's a question about VPN peering. So this goes back to the question about, so if you have maybe, I get this a lot with customers, right? They go, okay, I'm starting off on AWS. We start with one VPC, maybe it's the development environment. And then we go, okay, well, for security and segmentation reasons, we really want another VPC for our staging environment. And the production is going to be a different VPC. Do I need to buy 3, FortiGate firewalls? You can. Is there a way to do it with a single set of pair of firewalls? There is a way to do that. So what you would do is you would create a VGW VPN connection for each one of your, the dev, test, and production VPCs, and then you would terminate those VPCs, terminate those VPNs from those VPCs. It's acronym heavy, I know, into another kind of more central services, or you can call it like a DMZ VPC or a central services VPC or a firewall VPC, and then you can terminate those VPCs there and then put those in 2 different AZs, and from there you've got centralized control. That scales up to about, I would say about 10 to 15 VPCs. You can do that pretty easily. Beyond that, what you would want to do is put a FortiGate VM at each one of the VPCs, and then you're doing basically EC2 to EC2 based VPN. So yeah, that's what we call like the services VPC. You can look up on AWS. We just announced last week the transitive VPC architecture. So if you just do a Google search for transitive VPC AWS, there's a new solutions answers page that really shows how that works in detail, and it's very, very similar to how that would work with the FortiGate, although that example is with a Cisco CSR router. So if you can, we've opened up the feedback for today's session. So we'd highly recommend you guys fill that out. We really appreciate it. We use it to improve these sessions and find out what you guys are most interested in. So if you guys can do that, we'd be highly appreciative.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining and for filling out the survey. Do appreciate the feedback. If there were any questions that were not answered, we might have missed them, or maybe they possibly were not appropriate for this forum. Please feel free to reach out to Nick or myself directly, and we'd be happy to take those conversations offline. So again, thank you very much. Have a good day.